Welcome to this Economic and Infrastructure STC. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Ryland Doyle and Nicola Matthews.
And straight on to 2, disclosure of personal and prejudicial. The usual thing, if we talk about something later on and you think you should have an interest, don't be afraid to jump in. And then 3 then is the minutes of previous meeting, pages 1 to 3, 1, page 2 and page 3. And this as a whole, somebody move. Yeah, thank you very much. And then 4 then straight on to Tower Riverside strategy. And we've got Paul online who's going to take us through. But before you start, Paul, I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for coming along this afternoon. And if he would like to say a few words before we start.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to come to this committee today, just to share some of the exciting opportunities that I think are before us. There's quite an appropriate time. There's a lot of investment going into the Lower Swansea Valley, particularly the Harbour Copper Works this moment. I know that we are trying to get, and we have started installing some mooring sites along the way to actually to access the river and to get future taxis, river taxis, and lots of opportunities there. But it was during the summer months we had an invite. I certainly had an invite along with the Cabinet member for transport to go on the Copperjack and talk about future riverways and some of the future opportunities that lay before us or that come before us, all just needing some finance and some opportunities. So we met with our MP at this time, which is Torsten Bell, was on site and very excited with some of them projects. So we thought we'd share with you today some of them opportunities. What we during our visit, it was suggested that this committee hold one of your meetings on that on the Copperjack to actually feel and look at some of the opportunities going forward. And I think it would be a really good opportunity to do that at the appropriate time. I know with a bit of inclement weather at the time, once the weather changes, I would suggest that we get on the river, have a look at it, and actually talk through, because the chair there, I think John Davis, is very, very excited at what we do, and he's very grateful for the partnership we got existing within the City Council. So he's just build on that and look at what opportunities there are. One of the opportunities was to link up the Fenwood Lake with the Towie and to allow our Copperjack to access that and link up to further up to the Swansea Valley as well. So more than happy at this point to hand over to Paul Ralph to talk about future opportunities and funding.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. You're quite welcome to stay because I know you've got another meeting waiting for you.
I'd rather stay.
Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity as well to bring the report. As Councillor Hopkins said, it's something that really needs to be seen to appreciate the full scope. But what I've tried to do in the report is kind of draw together some of the strands that have been presented to you over the past 2 or 3 years to show that this is like a building picture. And the new destinations report that the group have prepared is a really helpful step to take it to visualising some of the concepts. But a lot of these components have already been realised. So as members are aware, you know, the Lower Swansea Valley, strong industrial heritage, which arguably scarred the valley for 200 years, and now that's being gradually regenerated, and a lot of the worst signs of that have been erased now with greening and new public realm and new features. But there's an opportunity now to start celebrating some of the features, and I guess memories are beginning to become more positive now, forgetting maybe the bleakness of the landscape as it was, but cherishing the heritage and the reason that some of our settlements through the valley, from the city centre all the way up through Morriston, Clydach and beyond, really, through the whole of the South Wales valleys. You'll be aware that there's been many studies done over the past 20, 30 years at looking at possibilities of renewing sections of the Swansea Canal itself, which for well over 150 years has run through the valley and was one of the more modern forms of transport back in the day before it got replaced itself by the railways, and was falling out of use. So that the canal itself ran up as far as Trebanos, it ran behind the Havant Copper Works down towards the city, and sections of the canal still exist. And the most prominent section, I guess, is the area from Hebron Road in Clydach up to Trebanos, and significant works, you'll be aware, have occurred there. I've listed some of the works that have happened more recently. The creation of the canal centre at Hebron Road from a former industrial commercial building, restoration of the buried section behind St Benedict's Church, which is now in water, the active travel footway that leads alongside that, and all of that is providing access for all user types, all user groups, and very, very popular with the community, and particularly linking into Coed Gwilym Park. The lock is on site now near the Mond, the Vale Works. That work is in progress at the moment, and the Friends have also done an interpretation leaflet in the same branding as the wider Lower Swansea Valley piece. And I think at the last time I spoke to you, I showed you the Towie Trails app, and that trail features on there. So the new destinations document has been around for a while, and different funding streams have input over the years. But the most recent version, as Councillor Hopkins alluded to, was launched on the Copper Jack earlier in the year. And I guess it's a thing of painting a picture of where we could go next with this, and that's why it's timely to bring it to the committee for discussion. That there are further sections of the canal that could be restored, and alternative routes that are marked out in the local development plan as it currently stands. And that could lead to more active use of the River Towie, building on the, again, Councillor Hopkins alluded to the pontoon we've already installed outside the Musgrave and Vivian engine houses at the Havant Copper Works, with a further two that are in the process of being procured at the moment, nearer to High Street Station, part of the river, and towards the Liberty Stadium and the Basquiat Bridge, which are all planned for reinstatement shortly. So the potential there is to link the city centre, the marina, High Street Station area, and SA1, the Copper Works, the Basquiat Bridge site and the stadium, the Fendrod Lake, possibly actually splitting off towards Morriston Town Centre, potentially along the River Towie, Clydach Town Centre, Coed Gwilym Park, Trebanos Pontardawe and beyond. And probably a good third of that area is now accessible by craft as things stand. There are some tricky sections that would require a huge amount of engineering, but it's a bit of a case of, as has been happening already, taking it a piece at a time and doing manageable chunks over a period of time, building it up a piece at a time in meaningful sections, which is the way it's been going. All of these sites require different forms of pontoon access because there are various levels involved, various levels of water. And what the report sets out helpfully is potential ways that could be addressed. And I guess one way forward would be to take some of the larger sections requiring heavy engineering and isolating those as particular projects on a phased basis over the coming years. It's a really exciting opportunity. It really adds a lot of colour and vibrancy to the valley. It's very popular, and there is, what the report demonstrates quite clearly, is there's scope to link all these things up really helpfully, and maybe even in future you could be looking at even getting as far as Neath Town Centre through these waterways. It's a long way off. There's multiple council departments and partners would need to be involved in each of these stages, as has already been the case with existing developments, particularly cultural services and the water safety, and the husbandry of the pontoons and access. But all of that is detail that can be worked through. This is more about highlighting to you and sounding you out on the potential, really. So I'll stop there. Happy to take any questions and welcome hearing your discussion on it.
Any questions, if anybody? Mike?
Thank you, Paul. Can I first declare just I'm a member of the Havant Copper Works Friends Group? I'll fill a form now when after the meeting. In regards to the Balsall Bridge, are there any idea on the timescale that is due to go back, Paul? The Balsall Bridge there?
The work should be starting in the new financial year. So from April 2026 onwards, preparations have been ongoing. The plan is in place, funding is in place. So it's just timing, and it's timing alongside the pontoons that are going in as well, because the two projects are happening concurrently. So it's just a timing issue now.
Yeah, and could I also ask as well, in regards to promoting the riverside there and the copperworks, especially, and what else is there, would there be any scope to perhaps look at some information boards along that section of the river?
Absolutely.
As
part of the levelling up
want to
scheme,
go on the Copperjack,
yeah,
would then could see on the way up.
Yeah, there's two things on that, Councillor White. One is as the Towie Trails app will function as you float along in the Copperjack, the app will tell you the different sites and locations that you're seeing as you're floating past, as Councillor Hopkins experienced earlier in the year. But also there are plans for further interpretation boards in the same style as the ones that were previously at the Copperworks. There are more boards planned, and that would not just on those locations, but further up the river as well, and up the canal into Clydach as well, to interpret some of the features up there too, but trying to follow the same branding and family of the Lower Swansea Valley brand, if that makes sense, that was initiated by the Friends of Avon Morva.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mike. I was going to ask about the Baskerville Bridge and the two pontoons, but you've answered that. So by this time next year, they'll be both up and running, Mike. Nobody else?
Can I just reassure that the funding is already in the budget for next year? It is definitely down to be done within this year. The Baskerville Bridge will be finished and on site. So fingers crossed, it will be definitely done within 2026.
Yeah, just a couple of questions from me. Which sections of the Swansea Canal should be prioritised for restoration first, and why?
I would suggest it's a case of looking for deliverable sections, as has been the case, to be fair, to the Friends of Swansea Canal up at Clydach, and timing it with the availability of funding opportunities that align with the aspiration. So I guess, you know, the incremental approach up at Clydach has led to accessing all sorts of different funding from Welsh Government, from the Council, and from other funding sources, but building it up in a meaningful way. So I guess the report does highlight certain larger pieces of infrastructure, such as entering the Fendrod Lake, for example, where part of the infrastructure exists, but there'd need to be work done on lock mechanisms because of the change in water levels, for example. That would be quite expensive, and that would be a case of lining that up. But probably getting the feasibility work prepared so that the costs are understood and the timescales are understood, and then mapping that across to funding opportunities that may be arising at the time. And doing it in that kind of meaningful way. There are sections that could be done with voluntary effort, as has happened at Clydach, but there are certain sections do need that heavy engineering aspect, which costs. But getting that, I think part of the proposal is that those key sections get worked up to the next stage of design, so that the financial implications are understood in the timescales, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I know the cabinet member is listening to all your appeals for finance. Yeah, and looking at the risks, and it says the loss of momentum. So how can we then ensure the momentum isn't lost over this long timeline?
I guess a key way would be, we've talked about the Towie Riverside Master Plan and the Copperworks Master Plan. I think it's a case of the new destinations reports, to be fair to the Copperjack Group, does give us a framework to build from, really, and to maybe formalise that a little more, and get to the next stage of design to explore a little further the needs at each of the pinch points, as it were, to connecting these different sections up. There's such a critical mass now of completed sections and facilities that begins to make the case more strong to complete the rest.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Will, I can see one of your hands up because you doubled up on my screen. So you can speak to the left-hand screen, right? Still on mute. Okay, while Will is trying to come back in. Obviously, the biggest point on this is finance. So, and even though the report says no new financial implications, what funding models could sustain canal restoration in the future, Paul?
I think, Chair, it's principally a capital funding ask over a period of time. But as I mentioned when I was talking, the phasing is probably the best way forward for this. That there's merit in doing it in a staged way, which makes it more palatable, doing it in manageable chunks, really. The potential for local growth fund, for example, coming forwards in the next 3 years from Welsh Government looks promising, for example. And it's this type of scheme that does support economic regeneration really strongly, and job creation and vibrancy of town centres. So it would align with those opportunities that are beginning to emerge, hopefully from April 2026.
I think learning from the Clydach experience is very much get the schemes ready when the grant funding comes available, so we are ready to go. So I think it's about working in future opportunities up. So when that money is ready to be used, there is no delay in getting it. I must have been one. Planning was in my portfolio. I'd regularly have a phone call from the Canal Society in Clydach saying, listen, if you don't sort the plan out by a week Tuesday, you're going to lose £300,000. And that's the way it went. They were really, really working to deadlines, very tight deadlines to spend that grant funding. So it is key that we work, as I said by Paul, that we work them small chunks up to the big master plan.
Okay, that's the way forward. Will, you're back. Can we hear you?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah, great. There we are. Cool. Yeah, everything sounds fantastic, and I think obviously regenerating the waterways obviously going to be a massive positive for the whole county and further afield. My question really is the taxi that's planned. Is that more of a tourism taxi service, or is that, you know, do you foresee people actually using that to get around the city? And how would those times compare as opposed to an actual taxi or bike, really? And how would that be funded long term? The second question I've got is around the canal network. I mean, obviously you see people on canal boat holidays. I don't think that the network is long enough or has the right infrastructure for that, but I want to know if it long term, if it could be linked up with other areas that do support that. And third question is, if we're doing the pontoons on the river, I believe the bridge over to Fabian Way, I don't believe you can cycle on both sides of that underneath. Is there any way of putting the pontoons in so that cycling can be linked round to Sainsbury's from that side of the river? So yeah, they're my three questions, please. Thanks.
Sure. I think on the commercial side at the moment, the only craft is the Copperjack from the marina to Havant Morva, and the Duke of Beaufort is part of that picture. Then, as to if a commercial operation were to start, there are implications there for that. So that would have to be worked through. I guess the opportunity is that I mean, it in some ways you're bypassing. If you've been on the Copperjack, it moves at quite a pace, and you could time journeys on that basis. It could work because you're bypassing huge amounts of traffic. Probably not as fast as cycling, albeit maybe for me it probably would be because I don't cycle very fast. But it would provide an alternative, and it's actually it's when you're in that setting, it's a completely different aspect on the place. You could be anywhere in Wales when you're floating down sections of the Towy there. You're right. As regards to scale, in order to, because the other thing I guess is you're potentially looking at different scale of craft going between the different pontoons. The Copperjack wouldn't necessarily be able to get all the way through the Fendrod Lake up to Trebanos. You're going to be looking at different scale of craft at different sections of the canal, but I guess it's probably more with us about looking at the opportunities in each town centre, district town centre, and the various settlements along the route of the canal, and how they make the most of the opportunities on particular sections. Because there's probably enough quantum there to do that, even if you couldn't necessarily be looking at longboats sailing all the way because the scale is going to be too big. But again, it's one of those things that needs to be explored in more detail. It's quite a high level study as things stand, because there are constraints along the route of height, for example, of the type of vessel you could get through. But I guess that's why we'd like to push forward with more detailed studies to understand that better. And the principal connections that are underway at the moment, near the stadium, the Copperworks and High Street Station and the marina, that provides a really good connection point, particularly if you're coming off a train at High Street. It's a short walk to the river's edge there to pick up a boat to go up to the stadium or down to the marina through a different means. It's not necessarily quicker, it's going to be a slower pace, but maybe that's something that's welcome. Was there a third one, Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, just about the pontoon access around to Sainsbury's, we could sort of.
Oh yes, sure, yeah. So I think there would be an aspiration ultimately that you would be connecting both sides of the river. So yes, there is that area under the bridges. I know that has been looked at, potentially linked to St Thomas, that you could actually create additional pontoon access to cover exactly that issue, which would also enable you to get from one side of the river to the other in the same way. Also, the White Rock site. There's already a boat quay there, which could potentially be brought back into serviceable use, as well as other locations along the quay wall on that side of the river. So that there are a lot, and even further up, there are lots of hidden artifacts under the undergrowth that could be tapped into to create more access. So I guess ultimately, if you look at places like Stratford-on-Avon, the pontoons are everywhere. The access is substantial, and I guess over time you'd be looking at trying to recreate something of that ilk, really, if that makes sense.
Could I ask, sorry, Chair, if I could just ask, how would you link one side of the river to the other with pontoon access without blocking the river?
Oh, sorry. I mean, as in boats traversing between the two. Not actually putting pontoon. Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to get through with a boat.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
Yeah, it's more just craft access from site, and also, people are kayaking or canoeing or whatever. The one outside the engine houses does have the ability for longboats, for example, to transfer into the river. Some of them would just be purely for passenger use, for passenger craft. But again, these are all. It's open to all of that. It's a case of going through and undertaking the relevant studies to get into more detail if everybody feels it's worth pursuing. And I guess that's the reason for bringing it here.
If I may come back one more time, I think certainly linking the cycling up, if we could, around from Sainsbury's, that one, I think it would make a big difference. That would be great, and it'd also enable more people to access the pontoons. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Will. I think we were discussing this the first time we went down the river a couple of years ago with this committee, and I think the same things we were talking about then, our aspirations of what we wanted to go, because Paul Lloyd wanted to get to his side of the river, and we told him he couldn't. Right, any more questions? No, just one question, Paul. Have we got a map of what our wish list then, of what we want from, say, Trebanos down, Clydach down, into the Tower, down into the Fenrod, and the routes?
Yeah.
There is a map.
So if you, I believe it's in the new destinations report. I can't remember which page, but I'll try and get that sent on to you separately. Yeah.
As it happens, I've got a copy with me. I can actually give to you. It's my copy, and more than happy to share it. And then
it's in there, is it?
It's in there, yeah. So it's in this document. This document has been commissioned by, joint commissioned by us. So I believe it was the Moses Way, Taylor Young have actually done a lot of work to looking into this with the Canal Society and with the Copperjack. So, and along with us as well. I think we funded it. So more than willing to share that with you.
Chair, the PDF is at the end of the report, so click the link and the document is there to download.
Thank the cabinet member for that. He's just got to get the funding to go with it, Paul, and you're on your way. Okay, any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Paul, for that. Very, very enlightening, and the cabinet member for coming along. Okay, thank you very much. No more questions. So if we move on now to item 5, which is the response to the recommendations made in the panel performance assessment. This is you, Ms. Holmes. This is you.
Thank you, Chair.
He's nodding away. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, just to give a little bit of context to this one. So the council had what's known as a PPA, or a panel performance assessment. That took place a few months ago now, and it's part of the requirements that all councils have, where independent chief executives and senior, whether it's 151 officers or other senior sort of directors, visit a council for a period of time, really just trying to find out how the council is performing, how it conducts its business, how it sort of relates to its partners and relationships and delivery of programmes. So that process took place with Swansea Council a few months ago. It was very successful, but like all assessments, there's always recommendations in terms of areas that the council might consider in terms of improvements or how it might do things differently going forward. And the purpose of this report is to bring to your consideration one recommendation that the PPA resulted in, which really was using the knowledge and the experience of the strategic transformation committees to help define what they call the core purpose and the end state of the various programmes within the council's corporate transformation plan. So within the corporate transformation plan, we have programmes like the regeneration programme, the More Homes programme, and obviously they get reported to this committee periodically. So that the project that Paul just set out is part of the regeneration programme in the wider sense. And so what we've done with this report is try to provide the committee with a little bit of guidance in terms of what officers feel are the sort of core purposes and the end states for the various programs. So to give you an example, in terms of the regeneration program, you might say that the core sort of purpose of that program really is to deliver the long-term transformation of Swansea, to make it more vibrant, more inclusive, more sustainable. And that might involve, creating conditions where the economy is thriving. We're building new homes, creating new jobs, delivering more infrastructure, and all of that whilst improving the quality of life for residents. So everything really from delivering affordable homes to revitalising the city centre and the waterfront, creating employment opportunities, getting the private sector involved so they can invest as well. Everything, all of that through to things like green infrastructure and even supporting well-being and climate resilience. So that would be, if you like, an example of what the sort of the core objective is for that programme. And in terms of the end state of that programme, so how would we know when we've achieved that? Well, we would have a city which is more resilient economically. It's more equitable in terms of socially and economically. It's more environmentally sustainable. You've got better engagement with communities, stronger strategic partnerships, and of course the links across then to the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, and longer term prosperity and reduced inequality and all of those things. So we've had a stab at that for the regeneration programme, for the More Homes delivery programme, which I won't go through but it's the same sort of thing. You know, we've tried to set out what we think would be the key objectives and end states there, and we've also even included one for the homelessness program as well. And so what we'd like to do is just to invite the committee really to give any views. So you may agree with all of that, or you may have a slightly different take on it, or you may want to add something. But whatever the views, we'll take those on board, and then what we'll do is we'll refine the information, and then we will report it up to the Corporate Transformation Board in January so that they can see what the committee's input has been in terms of those programs and the end states that I talked about. So really it's for discussion, Chair, resulting from the PPA work, which I think generally has been very, very positively received. And I think it's a good recommendation in terms of getting the committee's input to those programs to improve them going forward. So I'll stop there, Chair, and hand it back to you for any discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Phil. I don't know if anybody's got anything to say on this. No. Well, on 4, 5, 6 and 7, where it's got defining the core purpose and end state, that's something we can endorse here and now, because it is the proper way to do things. But on the 3 topics that are in the report, just to, in summary, that the regeneration programme is, like you said, Phil, it transforms Swansea into a vibrant, inclusive and sustainable city. It's what we all want, but it's through economic growth, housing and green infrastructure. And then we got the More Homes Delivery Programme, and is to deliver 1,000 additional affordable, energy efficient council homes by 2031, addressing homelessness and climate resilience. And then he went on to say about the homelessness programme, and that's to improve prevention, reduce resilience on temporary accommodation, and to strengthen pathways to permanent housing. That's the way I've sort of done it in summary of what the report. So I don't know if anybody wants to add anything before I carry on. Yeah. So just moving on to, nobody's got questions. You're not going to hand up, Will, because it disappears with you. Okay, cheers. So I don't know whether the committee will agree with me that all 3 programmes, the regeneration, More Homes Delivery and homelessness, are critical, given current housing pressures and homelessness challenges. And we recommend prioritising More Homes Delivery programme and homelessness programme for immediate clarity on the core purpose and end state. Yeah, we all agree with that? Yeah, happy with that, Phil? And
Yeah.
but we support then the alignment with the council's corporate plan and well-being objectives. And I want to say about the regeneration side, which is close to myself and Paul. I think one of the main challenges is the nutrient neutrality requirements that present a significant risk to delivery timeline. So can we recommend, whether we can on this, but you take it back to discuss, is that early engagement with NRW to agree mitigation strategies to explore collaborative solutions with developers and RSLs to minimum delays. This is very worrying at this moment in time, and in the next, well, I would say a good few months, because we are not getting anything from NRW at the moment, which we can mitigate against this. So I think that's all if we all agree with that, and that would be part of our recommendation then.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
We can add that point in. It is something obviously that we are very actively engaged in various task groups working with Welsh Government, NRW. So, but it doesn't harm
No.
making sure that it's even more visible. So if you're happy, then in terms of the core purposes and the end states that we've set out in the report, and it sounds like you are, we will report back to the Corporate Transformation Board these views and say that they've been endorsed by the committee, and then we'll obviously reference the marine sacks as a key issue. If you're happy with that, I'll take that forward as an action, Chair.
Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think that's all on that topic, I think, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, lovely, thank you very much. So moving on to the work plan. It's the last sheet of paper. We've lost housing on 15th of January. So I'm looking to put something else in there. So it'll be short notice, but short notice for you, but officers will have plenty of time to do a report. Okay, everybody happy? Thank you very much. That's the end. Oh, hang on, Will got your hand up. Or you just testing me?
No, thanks. Destination management plan on the work plan. Can you just remind me what that entails?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, not until I've looked at the report.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm just wondering what the main, was it tourism or?
Yeah, it was tourism. It was I think where we went. I think wasn't Langland one of our destinations.
Well,
the last time.
That's what I'm wondering, if we went into specific sites in it, or if it's more.
Yeah, but I don't know
high
yet.
level.
Yeah, it all
Right.
depends. Because the officers won't put certain destinations in.
Right. Okay.
Okay, Will. Okay, again, thank you very much for attending. Oh, and this is our last meeting for Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everybody. I know it's a bit early, but better late than never. Okay, thank you very much.